If you own a business that fits with us or know someone that does and are looking for a personal touch with marketing your brand, come advertise with Peanuts, Popcorn, and Crackerjack's podcast. Contact my wife, Christie, at sanofilms@yahoo.com. Gino's East is one of Chicago's most famous deep dish pizza places. They've been open since 1966. And there are still some people who don't realize Gino's East is here in LA now too. And let me tell you, it feels like you're in Chicago when you're in there. I know, I'm in there a lot. And during the week, Gino's has a happy hour from 3 to 6, Monday through Thursday. Get $5 drinks like Stella and Dark Horse Chardonnay. Also, $6 eats like spinach artichoke dip, garlic breadsticks, and a jumbo bowl of fries. There's so much great stuff on the menu. I always have a difficult time deciding what to order at Gino's. My go-to is probably the tavern pizza, cheese and sausage. You know what? Everything is my go-to there. Deep dish, the Italian beef, you name it. Everything on that menu is fantastic. Gino's East of Chicago and Los Angeles was named Best Pizza in the Southland by LA Times readers 2 years in a row. It's more than just a Chicago restaurant. It's one of the best restaurants in LA. Check out the friendly confines of Gino's East LA today on the corner of Coldwater Canyon and Riverside Drive, just off the 101. See you there. Sit back and relax. It's time for Peanuts, Popcorn, and Cracker Jacks. Hey, how's it going? I'm your host, Jeff Santo. I'm here with my wife, Christie.
Hello, hello.
Well, you know, it seems like we're getting up earlier every morning.
We say that because we got up. I got up at like 4 o'clock this morning.
Yes, you did, but because you got to sleep, you got a good night's sleep. But I think we're in a mode right now. It's June gloom, but the sun is starting to peer through, and I feel like where we are with what we're doing, I'm excited every morning. Like I want a full day every day because we're jumping again.
Yeah, we're free falling into
Yeah.
our creative path and endeavors, and it's exciting and thrilling and also nerve-wracking. And
It is, and but you know, I feel at 60, and I got to say this, I love 60. I just do. And,
you look good at 60.
Well, thank you, babe. And I feel like I'm all right with where I'm standing.
Well, yes. I mean, we are definitely all right with where we are. However, it is very loose soil that we're standing on, and you could say it's like a quicksand. I mean, this is the life
I don't know about
of
a quicksand.
The struggling artist.
Well, I've kind of had that my whole adult life when I got into the business. I've never had true security, but I've had happiness. But, you know, you want to accomplish things. Being an artist, you want to do things.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, you can't say, well, what is the measure of success? You know what I mean? Because you and I have been, I would say we have major successes as far as what you and I consider success.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as what maybe our friends and family may consider successes, it's like, we're struggling.
Well, yeah, we are, but we're doing what we've worked very hard to do. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
So it's in our soul. I mean, you get to a certain age where I'm at now, there's no turning back on anything. There's finding a place and a time to do what you love to do, hopefully at a higher level. And I think that's where we're at right now.
Yeah, it's almost like you get to a certain point and you just have to just ride the wave. You know what I mean? Because there's nothing else you can do.
No.
Right? I mean, you can, do what you have to do to get by, but there's only so long you can do that before, I mean, it's just not in our soul. It's not in our being. It's not what we're made for.
No, and we've worked hard over these last 5 years we wrote a book,
Mm-hmm. We
so
wrote lots of scripts.
scripts that we like, a pilot and a series, and our independent film that we're about to do.
Mm-hmm.
We're about to jump again.
Yeah,
and we're jumping now. I mean,
we're in pre-production right now of our sizzle, so it's exciting, fun stuff.
It is, and I got to say, I had to go back and I had to get a job for the last year. Working a lot of hours, And, at my age, I was the youngest guy there, but, it's what we
You're
had.
the youngest guy there, you said?
Oh, no, did I say I was the youngest? No, sorry, flip that. The oldest guy. I was the oldest guy there, but, I think that woke me up a little bit, like to be in an environment like, wow, man, okay, got to do this, but I got to get back to what everything we have done to start, making that happen.
Exactly. It's
together.
Almost like when you got nothing left to lose, you got nothing left to lose.
You don't.
And so therefore, it's like full in, like we're going for it.
And it's great to have, you with me. We've been together for a long time now, and you've done a lot with me. But I had a journey way before that, as you did, right?
Mm-hmm. But I have to say, like I've gone to, like I can put it on my resume. I went to JSFF. That's the Jeff Santo Film School. It's a 10-year program, and it's mostly an internship.
Hell of a ride. There you go.
I learned how to edit. I learned how to write scripts because in school I only learned how to do like more prose novel writing. So this was my first.
Yeah, and you're good at it, baby. I know.
It took me a while. I mean,
but you're good at it, and we're now gonna, do this independent film at and I say a higher level because I feel the vision is greater than I've ever had before with you. We're gonna direct it together, produce it, and
you're gonna act in it.
I'm gonna act in it, and I feel strong about that. So I feel comfortable about it, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Because I have. Directed actors, and I've never seen a role that I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm going to jump into that, just because I never thought that way. But now that I'm older and I've taken in a lot, this one fits me.
And I think that if you didn't have the acne issues that you had when you were younger, maybe you would have gone in that direction.
Yeah, I don't care about how I look anymore so much, so that's why I think I'm more comfortable. The most comfortable I've been in my skin.
You look probably the best you've ever looked in your whole life.
Yeah, well, thank you. That's why I
How
love
lucky
60,
it is to be a man that you
age.
Geez,
come on. So I think, though, going forward here, it is free falling, but that's what we do, and that's who we are, and there's no changing that. There's no shifting directions. And I got to say, when I first met you, that was one of the things that I didn't know. Like, hey, am I going to be solo most of my life? Because I was 45 when we got married.
And now I'm 45.
Now you're 45, right? So, and you were not 45.
I was 30.
You were 30. I do say it's 14, though, and a half years. Isn't it 14 difference? Okay, whatever. You brought so much to me, a different perspective, and I love it. But here's the thing, is that I remember saying to you, like, this train's going one way, and, it's never, that comfortable at times, and you were all about that. You were living in that world. So I was like, all right, this is cool.
Exactly. I've been free falling my whole life.
You have been. I
think solid ground is you know, I don't even know how I would be on solid ground.
We have solid ground right now, though. I got to say,
well,
with who we are, and
we are on quicksand, folks.
All right, whatever. I get. We're in California. There's earthquakes. Everyone's not on solid ground, so that's the way I look at it now. No one's on solid ground. They could say they are, but
Well, we do not have a job. This is our livelihood.
This is
yes, exactly.
Our podcast, our films. And then, one thing too is I love this podcast because it's going to go everywhere with us. It's going to go on this ride, which is going to be very cool,
Exactly. So, you're going to be coming on the journey with us.
Yeah.
And we're going to take you along.
We have a lot to do. So we have a great show today. Talk about a journey. Rob Weiss, who, I co-wrote Hell's Angels with for Fox 2000, and Rob's journey it's amazing, and he's going to talk about that, and just like literally, you don't know where you're going. He went from the street to Sundance, and I got to say, he talks about where he is now, and kind of in similar places. I mean, he had great success in the system in Hollywood, but I'm just saying, as older men in the business, he just looks at it like, wow, like how did he get through all that? But he did, because you just do it. You find the groove, you work hard, you find your place, you find your role, and you do it. We've been a lot out of the system, right? Mm-hmm. So, and that's just where we live. We've done I know personally, since I started, I've done more stuff than a lot of people in the system where, they're like, well, how do you do an independent film without, having a studio involved or,
Yeah.
Hollywood production companies and name actors. Rob started with nothing. Exactly how I've done it. And he jumped. He jumped the chasm. So I can't wait for you to hear that. And then Andy Masur, who was in the booth with my father and Pat Hughes, and Matt Bolts was injured. Andy was the in-between innings, give the updates, the score, and really, worked his way up to do play-by-play on his own and leaving the booth. But his journey, too, is similar. He talked about jumping in that booth, not knowing, like, what each day was going to, what it was going to bring, but he just had to work hard, put his head down, and just go with the flow, ride the wave.
Ride the wave.
Right? It is ride the wave. And no matter how big the wave is, we're riding it.
Exactly. Well, enjoy this episode.
Enjoy. This podcast is brought to you by Bernie's Tap and Grill. It's family owned and operated since 1954. Located across from Wrigley Field on Clark and Waveland. My dad hit a few home runs on the Waveland Avenue, and Bernie's was my dad's favorite place to go. It's got delicious food, 4 full-service bars, an awesome beer garden, a sidewalk patio cafe, and a cool upstairs area. It's the place I've always met my friends at before and after games. Go on by and tell Linda Dillman Jeff Santos sent you. Bernie's Tap and Grill, where you go when you go to Wrigley. Next, I want to talk to you about Wrigleyville Sports. If you've been to Wrigley Field in the last 30 years, you know who I'm talking about. On the corner of Addison and Sheffield, the green and white awning that beckons you to buy Cubs gear and souvenirs. Here's some history for you. This is a small, family-owned business that has been around since 1990. They're celebrating their 34th anniversary this year, and 3 generations of Karlstrom family have worked there. Wow, gotta love that. You know what else I love? They have an authentic 1969 Ron Santo Cubs jersey. And check this out. They're giving our listeners a special discount. Use the code SANTO10 at checkout and get 10% off your order. Shop online or in the store. They get new arrivals daily from brands you know and love like New Era, Obvious Shirts, and more. They have a wide selection of jerseys from iconic players, like my dad, to custom jerseys with their very own name, and free shipping on orders of $60 or more. And they sell more than just Cubs merch. Get gear from all your favorite teams, including the Bears, Blackhawks, Bulls, and even the White Sox. Hey, we're one family, we're Chicago. Go to WrigleyvilleSports.com and use Santo10 at the checkout. Go get your dad a Ron Santo jersey for Father's Day with using Santo10 at the checkout. Wrigleyville Sports, for the city, for the fans.
Hail Hail Auctions is Chicago's premier partner for rocking your fundraising goals. If your organization is looking for rockstar solutions to raise big money to support your amazing mission, you need Hail Hail Auctions. Whether it's providing a superstar MC or a killer licensed auctioneer to help plan your amazing event, they strategize everything from one-of-a-kind auction items to big-time sponsorship acquisitions. In Chicago or anywhere in the U.S., if you want to maximize your fundraising, go to hailhailauctions.com and be sure to say Santos sent you for a complimentary consultation.
Yeah, Santos sent you. Ron Jr. or myself, Jeff. We've known Chris for quite some time now, and we vouch for him 100%. Chris is a go-get-it-done type of guy, and he's fun too, so you'll have a good time raising money for worthy causes. Go get it done with Chris, now.
The consultation is 100% free when you mention the podcast, so what are you waiting for? Hail Hail Auctions is where money raised is love saved.
You got that right. My special guest today has had 2 hit HBO series with Entourage and Ballers. His road into Hollywood was an independent film dream come true. Let me tell you, only a few independent filmmakers have jumped that chasm like he did. From the street to Sundance, he's had 30 years of Hollywood success. Our roads crossed through the life and times of a motorcycle legend. Get into that. Rob Weiss, so good to finally have you on the show, man.
Hey, thanks for having me. I would have come earlier if you had invited me. I don't think I got invited.
I had a feeling you'd say that. I was doing a day job for a year, brother. So I was like,
I didn't even know that.
I was waiting to see you, right? So I was waiting to like see you and say, hey man, can you come on my podcast, rather than just, So now I'm done, but
Right.
so I was busy and, hanging out with young cats doing like, the boiler room for taxes. I was the old man in the group. Hey, got
You
me
were?
back.
Crazy.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't even know that, man. I got to hear this off camera. I want to hear this.
Yeah. So, but it gets you. It kind of gets you. It put me in a place to where, back when, like time to make the next independent film. You know what I mean? Time to. Not that my wife, Christie and I have been doing a lot of work over the years, and we got great stuff. But now it's time to make it happen. So that's where I'm at now.
Yeah, I mean, well, you're in probably one of the craziest times I've seen in this business in 30 years.
Yeah.
Like one day you go, oh, it's getting really normal again, and then the next day you're like, I don't even like recognize it. You know what I mean? It's just such a strange kind of universe now.
Yeah, it is. It is. I do think like how you started, and we'll get into that. I do think the independent film is going to come back, because I really feel it's the only way you can go outside and do your own kind of movie, because they're starting to do, all the same thing. And
well, I mean, it's 100% the only way you could. It's the only way you can do anything.
Yeah, but a lot of people don't do that
in television.
No, you can't. But you did it out of the system, and we'll get into that. But I got my first question I want to ask you: which show do you like better, Entourage or Ballers? Because like if you had multiple kids,
I did. Listen, there's things I like about each, and I also did that third show, How to Make It in America, which was short-lived, but has a really strong, dedicated fan base.
Right.
And there's things I liked about How to Make It that I got from that, or lessons, I should say, that I didn't get from Entourage and Ballers. To me, I'll always love Entourage as the big opportunity that I almost passed up that actually gave me a career, because I like you said, I was shot out of a cannon, or I shot myself out of the cannon, and I had this kind of meteoric success, overnight success as they call it, and I kind of bottomed out because I didn't have a foundation. And by bottomed out, I mean I had a lot of fear, a lot of insecurity. I made a lot of bad choices. I was running from the opportunity because I just was so scared of failure that I inadvertently created, failure.
Right.
So, that kind of avoidance behavior in itself is, a fail. So, Entourage gave me the credibility to be back in the game. So I'm always forever indebted and grateful for it. The experience, and I love the impact we had on culture, and that fact that we still have fans who watch it. I mean, Saturday night I had people telling me like, yeah, I'm on my fourth loop of watching it, and that guy's like 30.
Right.
So, but Ballers was the most complete experience for me, because on Ballers I was writing, and I wrote, a significant amount of scripts, at least 20 plus scripts out of 40 something, and have my name either written by or co-written. Then I was directing also. So now, and I'm producing, at least weighing in on how we can, shoot these scenes and where we got to move and what we got to cut. So doing all those things was just a cooler, as for lack of better words, it was just cooler to write scripts, me and Lev.
Right.
And then be out there with Dwayne and be like, yo, Dwayne, say this, because now you're throwing shit out as a writer. And then he's doing it, and then I'm editing it, or I'm planning it, and it was just a more complete experience for all those reasons.
Totally makes sense. And plus you got the
experience. But it doesn't have the cultural, people love it, and it actually had more viewers than Entourage.
Well, you got a big name coming in there with Ballers, so that
we had a lot of. The crazy thing is, I had days where I'm just standing there, and it's like Dwayne, Audrey, Russell Brand, and you're like, You're like, this is fucking sick. Like,
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Like for me, like I'm not saying that's like I was saying sick for everybody else, but for me, I was like, holy shit, And then Richard Schiff, Steven Weber, and Troy Garrity doing. There was just so much great shit. I mean, the whole cast was fucking dope, man.
Yeah, both shows.
All
man.
the guys were great. I mean, John David, Bofton, just all of them, man.
Both shows.
So solid. The women, Jazzy.
Yeah, both shows were like literally. You had a lot of named people in both shows, even cameos from business people in the.
Yeah, we had
Entourage.
some amazing guest stars on Entourage, and the main cast. You can't that felt like
I love them.
being kind of like the new kids, on the scene. Everybody needed Entourage to be a success. Everyone. Me,
right.
I was that guy whose career hit the skids as an indie filmmaker. Doug Ellen was the guy whose career hit the skids as an indie filmmaker. Jeremy Piven was the guy you're a Chicago guy, you know this. He was just some dude in Cusack's shadow. Kevin Connolly was quitting acting. I'd known Kevin since he was 15. He was quitting. Kevin Dillon was just Matt's brother, right? He did some cool shit, but he was Matt Dillon's brother.
Right.
Everybody needed the fucking hit. Even Levin Mark. Lev was Imagine. This made him a producer. This was just a gain for everybody involved. And I think being a part of that is what felt so good, to be like part of this, consortium of people and, working on this project. That part of the success was something that Ballers, even if Ballers won multiple Emmys, it couldn't have duplicated. It couldn't have replicated that part of the experience. Like being at the Golden Globes and Brad Pitt seeing the guys and being like, Turtle, you know what I mean? Or whatever he said to them, and everybody's freaking out, or getting that first Globe nomination or first Emmy nomination is pretty. I mean, they're both blessed experiences for me. I couldn't say which one's better, but I could say certain things about each.
No, it makes sense. The first
How to Make It was a great personal cautionary tale for myself.
Yeah, right.
That taught me how I shouldn't do business, who I shouldn't do business with, what I should give, what I shouldn't. It was still a cool experience to go back to New York and make a show, and I was running that for season 1, and I was definitely overwhelmed because I was doing Entourage still too. There were a lot of really significant lessons to be mined out of that show.
Yeah, like you said about Entourage, though, I think that means everything. When everything's in it for everyone involved to get to that next level, that makes a difference, man. And it's like a team.
Well, that's what it was, though, amongst friends.
Yeah.
Amongst friends was a group of guys who were nowhere.
Talk about that. Tell me, when did you go to Sundance with Amongst Friends?
It was in competition in '93, back when Sundance was that was like Sundance.
Oh, I know, man. I can't believe
that. That was like back when Redford would pop in and see the movies. There were 13 movies in competition. I was the year after Reservoir Dogs.
Right.
I believe 2 years or 3 years after Sex Lies videotape.
Huge time for so tell me how you did the film. How did that come? Was that a dream of yours, Rob, to be a filmmaker?
No, man. I mean, I am probably as unlikely a writer director as anybody would ever imagine, So I'm certainly not prototypical. I was a horrible student. I had a good imagination.
Absolutely.
I really am creative, but I never really believed that I was a good enough fine artist to be an artist. Now I understand that even fine art is a fucking hustle, and that if you could just have a voice. I mean, I know so many people in that, and as you know, I collect art, like street art. I know now it's a game, but back then I always looked at everything everything's so insurmountable, And,
yeah.
Then you get older
Yeah.
and you're around this, you realize like 99% of it, outside of people fucking pulling things out of your brain,
Right.
it's a bunch of bullshit.
Right.
It just is. Like,
Yeah.
outside of some legitimate fucking skill set,
Yeah.
where you're like, holy shit, how did this guy's a physicist, this guy's this. The rest is just a hustle, man.
Yeah.
I know guys who have no talent that crush it as artists.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, you got to have the craft. And,
it's subjective, but it's subjective, 100%.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, they're certainly not, their talent is not unrivaled. You know what I mean?
Right.
And in my opinion, you know.
A lot of timing, too. A lot of time. But I want to get to, we discussed our father.
No, so
time.
I'll whip it into that thing real quick. But
yeah, go ahead.
So the bottom line is, I went to art school. I went to Parsons. I wasn't a good student, but I was a good enough artist to get into Parsons School of Design. I was there. I actually thought I was going to study fashion. I really just wanted to make clothes, man. You know, for me, my friends, and again, it was kind of ahead of its time because everybody became a denim designer like 20 years later. But when I went there, I wanted to be like denim and cool streetwear. They didn't do that there. I didn't last more than a year in the fashion department. Took a year off, became a club promoter in Manhattan. Always loved movies. I'm pretty sure you met my mom. My mom is like, you know, like a drama teacher, student, actress. And, you know, but being the mom of three in Long Island, it was kind of far off. So we kind of all grew up believing that like Hollywood was a little bit of a pipe dream. And, you know, after that year of club promoting, I was unsatisfied with that. So I went back to school and I'm like, I'm going to study film. And I lasted there for like a year. I had some issues in the school. And then I'm like, fuck it, man. I'm going to go make a short film. So I sat down to write a short film. And I didn't stop writing. And before I knew, it was like 144 pages. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to make this 144-page script for like 40 grand. Like, you know, which was never going to happen. But I started shooting with roughly 40,000. And I had these two young producers who had never produced anything, but one went to Wharton, one went to Yale. They were reading books on how to produce. And they went to the IFP in New York with flyers saying Goodfellas meets Metropolitan, right? And they got all these people to come screen some dailies. And at the time, one of the most important people in the indie movement was this guy, John Pearson, who had literally sold the Coen brothers' first movie. Roger and Me, found Richard Linklater, After Me, Kevin Smith, invested in She's Gotta Have It with Spike Lee. Like, he was the legend. Like, I knew who he was, and he was a pretty young guy. And he was like, he saw the dailies, and he's like, I want to meet Rob. And I went and met him with the producers. He's like, look, I think you're going to be a household name. And he's like, I'm going to give you the money to finish the movie, $350,000. And then he steered the entire thing. Like, he steered the ship in terms of all the business of it, right? Like, he's the one who set up the screening to get into. You know, after a minute, we needed like an extra 100,000. We came out. I mean, there's so many stories that are crazy, but we needed an extra 100 grand. He had a fund from Island, Chris Blackwell and Island, and David Brown, the legendary producer, and he could spend up to $500,000 in 10 movies. He had a $5 million fund. For whatever reason, he capped out at 350 with me, but we needed more money, you know, and we came out here to screen it for the head of Island, who was this guy who was from the Five Towns, Eric Eisner, I think it was. And he watched it and he invited all these like cool people, like Phil Juan, who I'd met and who in a weird way. He's a director. He did State of Grace and 3 O'Clock High. Right. He's actually the reason. Yeah. He's the reason I went to go make the movie, because I was trying to be his assistant.
Yeah.
And his assistant was like, just go make something. So I was like, oh, I'll make it short. So he wound up there, and this agent, John Lester, I wound up signing with, who would decades later become the president of Paramount and start, you know, WME and Deborah with Ari, or he was a big piece of it. But, you know, at some point, all these people helped push the movie and guide it. So they all kind of helped get it into Sundance. They all kind of put their voices together with like who to sell it to. Unfortunately, we sold it to Fine Line. When I actually got a call from Jeffrey Katzenberg. I was living in my girlfriend at the time's apartment with her and a roommate off campus at USC where she was going to school. I had no money. I was in like her bedroom on an air mattress with her. I get a call. They're like, "Hey, Jeffrey Katzenberg's going to call you," and I'm like, "Huh?" I'm like, this is like a day after I get home from Sundance, and I'm out on the terrace with like apartment. I'm like, "Oh, hi, Mr. Katzenberg." He's like, "I'm on a jet heading to Washington D.C." I mean, like, bro, the level of anxiety and talking to anybody. But he had actually rented the Egyptian to watch theater in Park City to watch the movie. And then they were in business with Bob and Harvey and Bob Weinstein at the time because they were buying Miramax. He was trying to get them to buy it. So, but Pearson had just sold it to Fine Line. And, you know, I mean, that movie was never going to do anything super substantial anyway, because it was kind of like an indie movie that was made to look like, I mean, it was good looking. Mike Bonvillain did an amazing job as a cinematographer, but it was a low budget indie movie, art house, that was intended to not feel like an art house movie,
which was
but
cool.
to feel like something like Goodfellas meets Beverly Hills 90210.
Right.
Which is the area I grew up in. That's what it was. It was a bunch of rich kids and old gangsters.
It should have been promoted more.
90210.
Yeah, it should have been promoted more. It's like Brothers McMullen. I mean, it's in the same vein, but a little more street than that, right? You know?
Yeah, well, I think Eddie's like, you know, his brother Brian worked with us for 3 years or more on, I think it was 3 years, 3 seasons on Entourage. They're incredible people, man. Brian's like a lovely human being, really, really talented guy. And you know, and Eddie is too. Eddie's done like amazing stuff. I don't know him.
But that's the time you came out. So I mean, that film would have it could have hit like, more people. Yeah.
He was the year after me or the 2 years after me.
He was about a year after, 2 years after you, because I got to LA in '94. So now when you did Amongst Friends, what was the total budget? About $500,000 then, you say?
No, it was like I think it was like, I think we got the 350 out of him.
Already 40 in, so you're 400,000.
We probably spent $500,000.
Yeah, still that's nothing. Like for you're talking about Reservoir Dogs like 2.
Well, that was the thing that was the thing that freaked people out. I would go sit with all these studios. I got a 3-picture deal at Universal after that, and they gave me my own bungalow. I mean, it was nuts. But like, I would go around town and meet with all these studio heads, and they were like, "How the hell did you do that? You made a movie that looked like $10 million for $500,000."
That's why that movie was made a lot bigger.
I attribute a lot of that to my DP.
Right.
You know,
but you had cool shots. You covered the story. You had, what was cool is you had a group of actors that no one saw before, and that's the thing I love about independent film, right? You got Louis and Barty that came out of there, man. That was excellent. But these guys were unique.
Louis will tell. If you ask Louis, if you should have you had him on?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, Louis will tell you. Louis will swear that he's the reason the film had any success at all. Like, Louis will tell you, like, who's that? Vanilla White? Vanilla White? Just say Rob said, he's him. Well, there is reality to this, right? There is truth in the sense that, let me say it this way. So Louis came in, there was only those 2 characters. And again, like, people haven't seen the movie, so,
now they can go out and see it.
I think it's still on Amazon Prime because it was at MGM, and they could watch it. It's on Prime. So, and I don't think you
got to get it on Tubi. It should be on Tubi too, man.
No, it's on Amazon Prime because it's MGM, and Amazon bought MGM.
Well, then go get it.
So they have the whole library on there now.
Yeah.
So both Louis Lombardi and Frank Madrano came in to read for the same role. It was just one guy.
Right.
And they were both so amazing. And you got to remember, at the time, bro, I'm like 24 years old. Yeah. Like, I have no fucking experience. And I'm like, man, I can't choose. Louis was like this big, burly, kind of like up in New York, Harlem-y Italian kid with like a lisp. And he was like, he was great, And then Frank was so fucking interesting looking, and I believe he's like Dominican. He had a different vibe, and I was really agonizing. And then I was like, I'm gonna get them both. and I'm just going to have them repeat what the other one says in different ways. So I brought them in, they did it, and a big chunk of what we showed in the dailies that we shot first up was their stuff.
Oh, wow.
Because I felt like that was the comic relief.
Yeah, totally.
It's the comic relief for the whole movie.
And very street. Very
but people
authentic.
fucking loved them.
Yeah.
Like, watching the movie in the theater, people, it was very dramatic. And again, this is 30 years ago, so my recollection's not pristine, but it was pretty dramatic. But when they came on screen, people just laughed.
Oh, yeah.
People laughed, and it was like that kind of like comic relief that the movie needs. So in a lot of ways, the money came from Pearson because of Frank and Lou, right?
Oh.
And in a lot of ways, they elevated the movie with their performance.
Yeah, but you put both of them in there, and you decided to keep two of them, and so it worked. So
what Louis doesn't understand is I was the fucking puppet master. I did that shit.
I just said it, man.
No,
there you go.
It's true. No, it's true.
Man. Come on, you found them. Yeah, you found them. You said, "Hey, let's put them both together," and it worked.
Yeah, man. They were great, man, and and I really did take a lot of pride in the fact that most of the guys in the film, most of the people in the film. I mean, look at Mira,
Yeah.
When people went on and did other things, right? I took a lot of like pride in the fact that their first project was a project that,
that is special, man. And that's the chasm I'm talking about. When you can take an independent totally outside of the system, you're just doing it with the people that that have some.
Well, I didn't really know any of those people.
Right, but no, I'm talking about
I knew Mira.
They're getting in the film, so they become part of you. The ambition the lane you're going down. They're going down a similar lane. So you all get together and you put this thing together, but to jump it into Hollywood and then to have an actual career in Hollywood, that's almost impossible. Only a few people do that. Quentin Tarantino, yourself, Robert Rodriguez, we can go down the lanes, Allison Anders, a lot of them that just popped at that time.
Yeah.
Because
it was like tough to transcend. My suspicion is I could have had a much easier path for myself had my head been in a somewhat different place before making
at 24? How the hell are you going to know at 24, man?
Yeah, well, exactly. You know what I mean? But listen, I mean, it's hard to explain how this business was 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people made movies.
Right. No.
There were not a lot of places
film, man. You had to cut it in film. All that stuff. Yeah.
You feel like the whole fucking town is watching you when you get attached to a movie. I would get attached to projects. It would be a fucking variety story, and all these people would be like staring at you like this, like, "What are you gonna do about this?" And you're just like, "Holy shit, everybody's looking at me," and you're like, "That's crazy." Now, really, the problems are entirely different because now it's not that difficult to get movies made if you could put together a cast that has the value of the money you need. The problem is to get people to actually see it.
Yeah, that's it. Yep.
And know it exists. Yep. So back then, if you made something, people were like curious because not a lot of people did it. So,
but to get the success in Sundance, like a lot of people don't get.
Yeah, well, we really did.
Yeah,
like we missed the audience award. They said by a decimal point to El Mariachi. And the funniest thing is when I got into this kind of venue where they were doing the awards, and I looked around and there were like 2,000 people in there. I was like, I don't want to win. I don't want to win. I don't want to win. And I ran outside and I was smoking on the steps. I wasn't even inside when they called the winner. I had so much anxiety up there.
Well, yeah, did your hair start falling out? Did it really start falling out?
No. Oh, I told you that. I had
patches of like. I mean, obviously you got a full head of hair.
It wasn't my hair. It was my skin. So I forgot what it was called. I think it's like seborrhea or something. It was like, bro, I just want everybody to understand. I got a full ass head of hair, man.
First there's gonna be you got a full head, but this is gonna be just a clip.
No. It was like I had a skin condition on my skin. It was a scalp condition. So my scalp was like flaking and chipping and bleeding, and
Oh,
Bro, I was exhausted, man. It was like people would say, what made you guys think you'd go make this movie? And my only answer was like, honestly, we were too stupid to know we couldn't. It's just the truth, you know? So it was,
right. That's funny because now you got into the system, but that was not easy for you because you had some lean years. And then you're doing Entourage.
I still get lean years.
Yeah, but okay, man, not as lean as those.
I mean, I'm sitting in a nice house, but you know how it is. You got a nice house.
I know, but let's be real.
You know.
Yeah, but we go back to that though. You come out here and you got thrown into it. Even as an actor, you played in a couple of movies too, right? They threw you in a couple.
Well,
of movies.
I was myself in that Jimmy Hollywood movie.
Yeah, but still, man, that's a big deal. It's a very Levinson
film. Yo, Louis's the one who made that happen because Louis went to audition for a role with the casting director Lou DiGiamo, and then he called up. I just had a wisdom tooth pulled night dry socket, and I was on Vicodin. And he called up and he's like, "Yeah, they want you to come in and read for this thing." And I was like, "What? Nah, I'm cool." And then another friend was like, "Bro, you're going. A Joe Pesci, Barry Levinson movie, you're going. I'm driving you." So I'm like, all right. So I go in there, I meet Lou. He's like, just read this page. And I'm like, hey, da 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 da, blah, 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 da da. I'm like, I think I'm high from the Vicodin. And he's like, thanks. And I leave and I'm sleeping. And, we didn't have cell phones back then. And my home line rang. And this kid just came in and woke me up. And he's like, yo, you're shooting this movie with Joe Pesci and Christian Slater tomorrow morning. You're in a Barry Levinson movie. And I just remember like the whole day was like a haze. And I think I just probably woke up like,
right, wide-eyed.
But it was, that was super fun, man. I love Joe Pesci,
I want to talk about your dad. We talk about our dads a lot when we were together. And your dad was a very charismatic guy, larger than life father. And you're the oldest of the brothers, correct?
Yeah, but I like to think I look the youngest, I think like a couple things are going to come through from your podcast. The first one will be like, oh, you know what? The guy, he's been around in Hollywood. He knows his way around a little bit. The second thing will be like, yo, that's a vain old motherfucker. That motherfucker's worried about his hair. He's worried about looking young. Which, by the way, I'm more than.
Dude, you brought a lot of that. You brought a lot of that culture to Entourage, man, and that's one of the reasons I'm sure they plucked you in, because let's talk about the character that was written about you in there, the independent filmmaker in Entourage. What's his name?
Billy Walsh.
Billy Walsh.
Well, that was actually, so it wasn't so much that it was written about me. It was Doug had said, why don't you play this role as Rob Weiss? You got to remember, this is season 1. Played as Rob Weiss, who hasn't made a movie in like a decade. And he wants Vince. And I was like, at that time, I was like, this show was going to be awful. And I'm like, it's bad enough I'm even writing on it, And I was like, I didn't want to do it. But I also didn't want to act. And like, I was like, I don't know. And then it became like, all right, well, let's create a guy that's a little bit Rob, a little bit Vincent Gallo.
Right.
A little bit of, a maniac, basically. One of those overly precious, kind of indulgent filmmakers, who's so self-obsessed. So, but it has been attributed to me.
Yeah, well, it is. And I could test now. Let me, because you Billy washed me one time, man, when I first met you, because he did it to Vince, right? Telling him that, you got to play this part and you're going to have to.
Oh, yeah. What did I do?
You're not going to want to do, so that character was a lot of you.
Right.
I'm going to say, before I get into that, do you want, looking back at it now, today, how old you are today with all the wisdom and experience, would you play that part again if you're going back in time?
Well, I you know what, man? Like, I've never watched myself on a podcast, even podcasts I've made. I've never listened to myself on a podcast. Like, I can't look at myself on film tape, and I can't listen to myself. It's just my thing. So for me, I don't believe it would have changed my life at all, because there's no universe in which I would be like, oh, I want to be an actor.
That's cool. You know what you wanted. Yeah, that's absolutely. Yeah, I get it.
I think it's even cooler that the people who know just know.
Yeah, Yeah, you're right.
You know,
Right.
and that's it, man.
Totally.
You know?
But when I got to know you, because the first time, we got paired together to write Sonny Barger's autobiography. That was a number one bestseller. Hell's Angel: The Life and Times of Sonny Barger. And when we first met up, I picked you up at the W Hotel in Scottsdale, and I think within 10 minutes, you had me thinking something. I'm like, oh my God, I don't know.
Oh, that I had a DUI or something.
Oh, you threw a lot of stuff. I'm like, oh my God, we're gonna have trouble getting this done because Sonny wants to get this done now. And you just gave me the vibe, like the way you threw it at me. I'm like, I don't know when I can get to a certain. I don't know what it was because a while ago.
Oh, what do you mean about how I work and what I'm?
Yeah, you were just screwing.
I thought you were talking about I remember I played a trick on you, just saying I had a DUI. I never did, but I was like fucking with you. But what were the things? What was I saying?
I don't know, but all I know is I was 10 minutes into it, and I'm thinking, oh my God, we're going to go meet Sonny, and Sonny, we're like the last, saving vessel of this story, because they had 4. And I'm thinking, Rob, we got to go in there and nail this. And you threw like a curveball to me. I'm like, oh my God, we're going to be in trouble here. And then you're like, hey, just kidding, man. I'm like, oh my God.
Oh yeah.
So I was kind of like, all right, here we go. And then we got to Sonny's house.
Right, and then Sonny chews me out. Well, he didn't chew me out. He's like,
no.
He's like, Rob, I don't want to make fun of the voice, but people who don't know should know that he had a trachea removed.
Yep.
Right, he had throat cancer.
From 82.
So when he talks, he would talk with his finger over his throat.
Yep.
Sonny's a fairly intimidating guy to start off with. The finger over the throat added another whole element to it. And then he's like, who is this Dylan? And I'm like, well, that's my assistant. He's worked with me for 4 years. Why does he know about it? You know what I mean? Like, well, he's not a Hollywood guy, Sonny. Like,
no, not at all. Not at all. Man.
Right, trying to explain things to them. It's just a different world.
Well, I knew a little bit about that going in, and that's what I was trying to tell you. But when we were in there, and then he went and talked to Chuck Zito because he flew out too for you. He's a friend of yours. And so they got to talking to me, and you went outside. And I remember like, oh, I'm going to.
Well, first off, it was a little more tense than that because at that point, because I'm going to tell the story of what you did today.
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting to see how you cut it, even though I won't watch this.
Cut it. I'm not going to cut anything. What are you talking about?
So Sonny tells me his concerns when we go there.
Yeah.
Which and then there was some like interesting because I would ask him some hardball questions, and he would go like, "That's not important for me to know," kind of answers. And I'm like, "All right." So then day 2, Chuck had flown out.
Yep.
I was with you. He was coming by the house. And I think they had to have a conversation.
Yeah.
Like, but I could tell that it was like there were complications or something. And I'm not exactly sure. I wasn't inside of it.
Mm-hmm.
But all I know is I felt like energy, even though they were incredibly close.
Yep.
There was something that needed to be discussed, right?
Right.
So I'm outside with you, and now I'm like, oh, is something tense happening? And you look at me and you go, they want a script by next week, or they're gonna. I forgot what you said. They're gonna make us drink water. What did you say? They're gonna tie us.
They're gonna make us swallow salt water and take a ball pen hammer to our hands.
Right.
Yeah,
Your face was red.
Goddamn
was
bone
red when you said it. You go,
we're writing again.
Right. That it was like that. It was that. And you go, listen, man. They said if we don't have a script by next week, they're gonna make us drink salt water and they're gonna take a ball peen hammer. And I'm standing out on this like expanse of ranch land in fucking Cave Creek or something?
It was Canyon City, Black Canyon City.
And I'm like, wow, this project's gonna be the death of me. So what did I say? I was like, yo, I'm gonna tell my kids.
Your face, I loved it, and I got to say to you, after you got, I'm like, I'm just kidding, man.
Yeah. But I was like, motherfucker. Like, I listen, man. I mean, I thought Sonny was cool as fuck, you
Yeah, we
know.
did a good job, man. I love that script that we
I
wrote.
I still talk about
Yeah.
that script all the
Yeah.
time because anybody I think that can take it out of Disney, I'm like, yo, try to get this
Well,
out.
no one wrote the script we wrote, right? We wrote the real story, the Sonny story with Sonny. They never went to
But it's
Sonny
more
before.
than that. We
I know,
wrote
but we
it.
did the origin story, and that was the story. That's the only
Yes.
story that should be told through Sonny's, journey, because Sonny is the Babe Ruth of the culture. We all know that, right?
But
And
that's not what's special about it, in my opinion. I mean, that is special, obviously, to write that story. But what makes it different, in my opinion, than the way most people would go about writing that is we made it fun. And we made it them fun. And
yeah, we
their
did.
characters. It's like
It was
almost
exciting.
like
Yep.
a People versus Larry Flint, except not as sophisticated.
Right.
About like the law. It was more about like a surrogate family of these bikers, but they're really just cool, tough guys and outsiders that all came together, you know. And
yeah, man, it was a beautiful story because these guys did come together. They were outsiders, kind of misfits that rode, and just Sonny's story of how he happened upon the Hell's Angels with Vic Betancourt is an unbelievable part of the story, the beginning of it, and then to take over, and then to have an inner conflict with the club itself before it became, known. And they're all,
it's
World War II vets, right? And Sonny's a child of World War II. But we took that camaraderie, like, here's guys that got to know each other, that found their own family outside of their broken families. And that was beautiful. And you went on this ride, literally, that we took them on. That was fun. It was dangerous. It was exciting, and it worked, man. And so, but hey, it's out of our hands.
The fact that we told it over the 3 decades in the 50s was more greasers.
Yeah,
and
it totally had.
they're like, they're having bar brawls and their kids fighting on the street. Nobody's shooting.
No one's shooting.
And then in
the cops
60s,
are even putting
their
badges off. Yeah.
Yeah, 60s is like Haight-Ashbury.
Yep.
Hanging out with the dead in San Francisco and
with the merry pranksters, right? And
it was that whole kind of vibe.
All the stuff that Sonny and the Angels rode through during those counterculture years was amazing, man. It's part of history, and they're an institution. They're an American institution still thriving. So it's like, you can't just sit there and ignore that story because you don't want to tell it for some certain reason of your brand or whatever crap. I don't know, man. But someone should get out.
Wait, who? You think somebody doesn't want to tell that story?
Why didn't it get done? It's like why isn't it getting done?
That's obvious now. 5 years later, it's all obvious. Number one, the person who was really driving that project died.
Yeah.
Right, and that's not Sonny. That was Scott.
But I'm talking when we came on. I'm not going back to that. I'm talking when we came on.
But I'm saying, but that's what started this. So Tony Scott set it up at Fox 2000. So the relationship was not between Elizabeth Gabler and Sonny Barger. The relationship was between Elizabeth and Tony, and Tony and Sonny.
And Tony telling the wrong story that Sonny didn't accept. So
but that's neither here nor there, because if Tony was still alive, and Sonny was like, let's do the origin story, Tony still could have moved that through.
He could have,
whether he directed it or not.
Right.
He could have produced it and had somebody else do it. But when he died, that really left a vacuum for just Sonny and Elizabeth to sort it out. And he wanted the opportunity to tell the story that was his story in the book.
Yep.
The way that they originally envisioned the movie being. And that's why they didn't want to throw a ton of money at it, which was evident. Remember, we had to try to get extra money just to get you here.
We had to pitch it.
So the handwriting was kind of on the wall that the intention probably wasn't to make it. And then, unfortunately, which was fine with me, by the way. Like, I was like, cool, give us the script and let us go make it somewhere else. What was never disclosed was the amount of money that was against the project, which anybody who knows Hollywood, when you start talking off the $10 million of debt attached to a project, you're never getting it out. You never get it out.
There's ways to play with that if someone really wants to get it done. I mean, where's it going? It's going. They wrote that off. You know how it works. It's
Well,
just
that's
still,
now. At the time,
yeah.
we tried. They weren't
I
interested
know, but
in
it's still,
Fox,
yeah.
yeah.
We had a lot of other obstacles. You're right. There was a cutoff.
Right, but now Disney owns it. I mean, I don't, you
Yeah.
know, I'd be surprised if they want to hold on to it, but I think they feel like it was tied to all the other IP they bought, and because Sony's, and again, I don't know, you could cut out whatever you want to share, whatever
I'm
you
not
don't
cutting
want
out
to share.
anything, man. What are you talking about? We're talking the truth here
Oh,
about what we
only
did
because
together.
like I don't know if
So,
people understand the process to get
yeah,
this movie
of course.
going.
I love it. Yeah.
Was that Sony's book is the only piece of intellectual property that the global
Hell's Angels
community of Hell's Angels voted on
to
to
accept
allow
itself.
the trademark to be used.
Yep.
Because Hell's Angels is trademarked. So you can't make a movie about Hell's Angels. I mean, first off, I don't think it'd be that smart to begin with.
Right. No.
If they don't want it, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I remember going to, like,
Good
when
luck.
I met Sonny, it was at a funeral, and I must have shaken the hands of, and I'm not like a small guy, but I must have shaken the hands of 20 different presidents.
Yeah.
Every guy was 3 times the size of me.
They
I'm like,
reminded me of guys back
are
like that. Yeah, clubhouse. They're
guys are
little,
like
they're
Vikings,
athletes.
bro.
They're big guys.
Yeah, these guys are like monsters. You know, I mean, they're just, every one of them is just a tank. So, but that had to be voted on, and they voted to let that movie be made. So when all the other IP was bought, unless somebody buys all the IP, like Sonny's book, I don't know what Sonny got ultimately. Let's say he got $1 million for the book because they owned it by the end of it. So let's say he got it. You go and they go, well, I'll give you the $1 million back. They go, yeah, but we spent $6 million on all this other stuff. That'll become useless because they can't make another Hell's Angel movie. They can only make the movie that was voted on by the club, which was Sonny. So, and I, to my knowledge, from a couple of the guys in the club that I've spoken to, some recently, that still stands. So my hopes are,
yeah, of course it does.
If that fucking Tom Hardy, Austin Butler movie about the Outlaws makes any money, maybe they'll be like, yo, let's make a ton of biker films. And then we have a great film. It's not like
you got the main one, man. There's no other story to tell than that one, man. And I'm telling you that right now. Until that story is told, they can go do these offshoots with Tom Hardy. And I know, is it based off the Outlaws? We'll know when we see it. I only saw
well, it's that photo book, right? There's that famous book that I think was shot in the Midwest. I don't know why I think it's Oklahoma, but I'm probably confusing that with like a Larry Clark photo book. But there was a book with all these photos of outlaws and very famous images that, from to what I'm to understand, is that they use that as inspiration to create this movie, but they're not called Outlaws.
Yeah, I remember that story, though, was supposed to take place out in California, so I was wondering if they'd taken off of Sonny and the Angels. But I haven't, I only saw the trailer. You can't
no, it's the outlaw photos. I knew that the minute I saw. The minute I saw like the images.
Yeah.
Because I remembered that book. But that's what it is. But they wouldn't fly the real colors and name anyway.
No. But you'd wonder if they peel part of the story away in their own version, and that's what you look out for. You know what I mean?
Got it. Well, they will. They will.
We'll see. Yeah. We'll see.
They're doing the Greaser 50s.
Yeah, I know. Unfortunately,
and like that would automatically step on us anyway. But ours
doesn't matter though. It's Sonny Barger. It's the real story. It's the real thing. It's the real deal. So I remember
the 50s portion of our movie, of our script, was great because they're just outnumbered by all the other chapters that are like you're not a Hell's Angel.
Yeah, right.
They gotta fight. They gotta fight with their own club for the right to be called Hell's Angel.
Right.
Which was fucking brilliant. Yeah.
It's even how he met they just take a patch, from a garage sale and don't even know the Hell's Angels exist, right? And they make their own and call themselves Nomads. And then they go on their first ride, but only one guy rides with Sonny. They took both girls with them. And he winds up losing a transmission in Southern California, pulls over. And who pulls over to help him is a Hell's Angel from SoCal or in the past.
Yeah, it was that
didn't know we have Nomads in the charter. Yeah.
It was that Vic Betancourt guy, and I think they were Barstow or something.
Yeah, it was right when they entered into LA and no, that was a SoCal a charter. Yeah. It was SoCal. Purdue was existing at the time in Frisco and and what was the other one? Fresno, I think, were the four clubs, and then Oakland with
right,
Sonny
right.
leading the
Awesome.
young guns, which is a great thing too, because these kind of guys are older World War II guys, and you've got like the children of the World War II vets, right?
Yeah.
Coming up like the young guns. So we had a lot of that going on too. Yeah, man, it's exciting. I remember the time when we would always ride outside on your porch there, and it was cool because I was living in Arizona at the time, and you got me to stay at the Oakwoods. So I take the bike over to your house. But I remember when we were writing the story, like, hey man, you got to ask Sonny if we could use this piece of the story because he kind of built up the whole acid scene. And you had me call him. I'm like, I don't know, Rob, man. I don't think it's wise to call him. No, you got to call him. You got to call him. And only time Sonny Barger ever hung up on me, man.
Oh, yeah. What was that?
I remember come back to Rob, that? Never am I calling him again with an idea outside of what it.
Oh, man. You know, like I can get into all things like he was on the phone one time and I was so passionately wanted something and I'm not even listening to him and I'm just going and going and going. And it's almost like arguing, but it's not arguing because it was like about something creative. And then all of a sudden Z gets on the phone. She's like, Rob, it's Z. And I'm like, oh, hey. He's like, listen, Sonny wants you to shut the fuck up. Like, it was fucking hysterical, man. And then I'm like, oh, all right. Yeah. So, it was so funny, man. No, but I do remember he got pissed at you. But I don't
got pissed at me. Yeah, right in your house, man. I remember I had to go in the corner.
But that was an ongoing debate. That was something I didn't want to lose. That the other guy, that other producer, wanted us to lose. And that's why he got hot. Because I was like, that
came around. It was more about the acid thing, and we made up some thing about, I don't know, the acid trip. And he's like, it didn't go down that way. He was particular like that. He was like, and I think it was earlier because, yeah, you might have had a little bit of back and forth with him. So it was a quick no. And I'm like, Sonny.
Well, I mean, listen, I'll maintain. I don't even know what the thing is, but I'll maintain my position on the fact that
it could have been what you're saying.
Right. Taking even a biopic.
Yeah.
There are certain liberties you have to take.
Oh, of course.
In order to tell the story. You just have to, man.
Oh, I know.
And I learned that lesson. I don't even know if I told you a story. It's one of my favorite stories. I first got to LA, and this is when I was dating Shannon Doherty, right? So I started dating Shannon. I went to a dermatologist's office in Beverly Hills. It's like 1994, maybe 95, probably 94. And I'm sitting there, and it's crowded. And this dude walks in with shaggy blonde hair. He looks, maybe 10, 12 years older than me. He's got a backpack, like OP shorts, you know what I mean? And he goes in, he's like, hey, Billy Hayes. And they're like, oh, hey, Billy. And he signs this thing and he sits down across from me. And I'm like, I go, Billy Hayes, that's an interesting name. And he's like basically, how so? And I was like, I said to him, it's an interesting name. He's like, yeah. I said, that's the lead character in Midnight Express. And he goes, yep, yeah, it is. And I look at him and I could just tell by the way he's looking like kind of straight at me. I'm like, yo, is that you? And he goes, well, that depends who's asking. He's like, for Interpol and da-da-da-da, the answer is no. But for everybody else, it is. And I'm like, no, you're Billy Hayes from Midnight Express? And he's like, well, yeah. So now I'm like, I don't even want to go into my fucking appointment. I'm like, I start asking questions, and I'm like, and Oliver Stone wrote that script, won an Oscar for it. So I say, yo, that like soliloquy, that monologue you say at the sentencing in the court, like, which is, I fuck your sons and daughters because they're pigs. I go, you said that? And he goes, well, no. He goes, I go, oh, he goes, no, actually, I said, look, I really pity you people that you have no compassion and that you're willing to throw me away for something like this. And I go, oh, and he goes, but Oliver said to me, yeah, but that has no punch. What were you thinking when you got back to yourself? And he's like, I was thinking I fuck your sons and daughters because they're pigs. Oliver goes, that's what we're going to write. And then I said to him, and I go, yo, did you really like bite that guy's tongue off and like kill that guy? And he hit the rod thing, this and that. And he's like, well, no. And about the whole thing. He goes, I actually got out because I got help and I got to Turkey, or I don't remember the story, but it was like 10 steps. And he goes, and when I read the script, I went to Alan Parker and I was like, Alan, this isn't how it happened. And Alan Parker said, well, no problem, Billy. What 45 minutes of the movie would you like to lose so we can show how it really happened? And like that to me is the point of the shit. Like capture the essence, you capture the point of the story. You know, Hell's Angels, they're a piece of Americana. There's a huge mythology surrounding them. They are definitely, in some cases, misinterpreted in some ways,
cases,
right?
Yeah.
There's different types of guys in that club.
Yep.
And there were a lot of important things that I thought about the culture as a whole, whether it didn't matter if you were in a club and it was a different club, that you would still appreciate it because it was about your 1%er culture.
Yeah, and it's that world. Exactly. It's their world that
right. And those were some of the important things. And some of the other important things about Sonny were the family aspect.
Yep. Of course.
The love stories, the things like that. So I felt like,
you know what that is though, and I'm going to tell you, looking back at that, and you're right, man. I was there with you on that, but when it came to details that he knew wasn't true, you're talking to a guy that if it was, you know, Midnight Express, that's one guy you're dealing with. With Sonny, you're dealing with the club, right? Because in his mind, he's like, I don't want something to be not authentic, personally, even though he'd probably agree if we had more time to explain it the way you're explaining it. It just never really happened that way. So when we found ourselves a little bit in a box, we kind of like figured out we got to stay out of that box now and try and just not do the details with them. You know what I mean? But even through that, I think we would have got there, and we did. Probably on 90%.
I mean, I'm proud of that.
Yeah, 90% of it. Yeah. So
I mean, I haven't read it in like 7 years.
I did, man. It's good, man. It's good.
I loved it, man.
Yeah, it had a good tone to it, man. Because you were going to direct it, so you had to make sure that the tone, and we worked on that hard, man. You know, this is the tone we wanted. It's fun. It captures the culture and everything about it. You want to watch a movie like that over and over again because, you know, instead of going, oh man.
That's what I mean. I think it was and I hate to use this like term, but there were certain elements about it that really did have guilty pleasure.
Yeah.
Like, you know, elements, you know, to them, like much the same way like an Entourage.
Yeah.
Where you go, yo, that shit is funny, or that shit is cool. Right, love that. I love that dynamic and that exchange. I want to watch that again. And I felt like that's kind of what it was, because I felt like if we had gone really down the rabbit hole, it would. First off, there are liabilities, because I remember there was one thing,
big ones, but in a way of just why though, like, you know, you got to go on what are the facts in those situations, right? You know, so and we did, you know, so why go down? It gets too complicated when really.
I just mean like going down the rabbit hole in terms of like drama, making it too dramatic. I felt like they go, oh, it's like Goodfellas, but with bikers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Because it was an ensemble piece. It was an ensemble piece, really. You know,
totally, man.
You know, so you got to head into
I wanted you to feel like. I'm hanging with Doug the Thug.
Right.
I'm hanging with this one.
Terry
and
the
that
Tramp.
one.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, Terry Tramp. And I want to hang out with these guys more.
Cisco. Man, you want to just keep on hanging out with them, right?
Yeah, that was
all these other famous names that come through.
Well, listen, bro, it's not over yet.
It's not, man. It's not.
It could happen at some point.
Hey, man, I could talk to you all day, man. This is awesome. So we got to get together soon, have a smoke.
Oh, yeah, man.
Too long. And thank you, Rob, for coming on the show. It means a ton, pal. And
that's it? That's your whole show?
Well, I got another part of a show, but that's the show of the special guest. You're my special guest. So
that's awesome, man. That's awesome.
Yeah.
This was painless.
Yeah, no, that's it.
Unless I said something wrong about the Hells Angels. Then it could,
right. It was good. We finally got that out, man. We've been separated from that for a while now, so us talking about it feels good, you know, because we did put a lot of work into that.
I know.
Yeah.
I still talk to some of the guys that I met through that process that are in the club. And I think they'd all love to still see that happen.
Oh, of course, man. They'd be proud. I still communicate with the guys I know.
And that was the thing, is that we wanted to make a movie that they were proud of. Like, right?
And we did that. Yeah.
Proud. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. And give like
Brother,
you said,
I love you, man. You look great.
Love you too,
guys
pal. You
good?
too, man. You do, man. So we'll
We gotta
connect
get up
soon
there.
here. All right. Tell me when you want to
Oh,
have
yeah,
a call.
man.
Let me know. I'll be there.
Absolutely,
All right,
brother. Rock and roll.
Hey, how's Carlo doing?
He's great, man. He's great. Bro, he's the sweetest boy in the world, my son, man.
Better use that A2000, man, and let people know too. You know, your brother played professional baseball, so you know a little bit about the game yourself through him.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you know, knowing me, but you weren't really a baseball player.
We all grew up we all grew up playing baseball. That was our sport as kids. You know, that's the sport my dad coached us all in, and you know, we go to Met games. I mean, I don't really follow baseball now, to be honest with you, because I don't bet. And I don't really have a home team I love that much.
That's the key. That's the key. Exactly. Well, my home team.
Yeah. It's either you're either a gambler or a diehard fan. I actually will put on a baseball game if I want a nap. Because for some reason.
Come on, man. You can't. I got.
Bro, the sound
of the crack of the bat,
game,
just the baseball, even keel sound.
It's the intermittent silences that create a rhythm. The same thing with golf.
Right.
Like if I watch golf, I'm out in like 20 minutes, man. It's a sedative. And watching baseball on TV is like,
it is. I'm trying to tell them.
Here's the wind up.
You got to make
then there's a pause and a strike.
Dude, you got to make it different. I tell you, you got to bring in a different tone to showing baseball on TV. They've stuck with the same structure for too long. But you're right.
Yeah, but I like it. But it's just I like it for
sleep. You like it? Yeah, it's a good nap.
Yeah, I like it. It's like melatonin.
Yeah,
it's melatonin. If it were in a sport, you know, it's like a magnesium pill. You know.
All right. Hey, man. All right. Let me know when we're gonna have a smoke, man. Can't wait.
Soon, brother. Soon for sure.
Everything good in the business, though, too. See, everything good. What do you got?
Yeah, everything's cool. I'm writing a movie for Apple right now.
Okay.
And I sold the show a year ago to Skydance with my partner Cassius on this particular show with Levinson and Wahlberg. We sold it to Skydance, and now we all just sold it together to FX.
Wow.
So it's getting one step closer to potentially becoming a show. I mean, I'll give you one line of it.
Yeah, please.
It's basically How to Make an America meets Entourage in the world of MMA set in Miami.
Oh, wow. All right.
Yeah, so it's fun. It's young.
Yeah.
It's young fighters on the hustle.
Yeah. Wow.
What their lives are like. So
outside of the pen too. Yeah, that's kind of cool, right? Do they fight outside? You know. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's where you start before you get signed to the UFC.
Cool. What's it called?
Right now it's just Untitled Fighters.
What's that?
So it's Untitled Fighters.
Okay, Untitled Fighters. Okay.
It's just fighters.
I like that, man. That's great.
Yeah, so we'll see what becomes of it. You know, I don't really usually talk much about the things until they're real, but it's been like 4 years since I had a show on the air, so now I got to sit here and talk about the near wins now. Otherwise, people think I'm just retired or dead. You know, so it's like
strange, man. That pandemic put a dent in a lot of things, man. What about your movie now? Can you give me a little bit of that? What it is?
So the movie I actually outlined. It's basically. It's basically The Bodyguard.
Okay.
But with two guys. So it's a bromance instead of a romance at the core of it. It's, an ex-Secret Service agent guarding a pop star to Europe for a quick 24-hour trip, and the pop star witnesses a murder. So there's a lot of twists and turns. There's a lot of other stuff going on, but
a little noir in there, man. That sounds cool.
Nah, it's an action buddy.
Okay, all right.
I just pitched it poorly because I'm trying not to give too much away.
All right, I got it. Awesome.
Yeah, that's what I mean, man. That one's fun also. Like if they're not laughing the whole time, like I fucking drop the ball. But I don't write broad comedy. I mean, I do sometimes by accident.
Yeah, situational.
Yeah, I try to keep it real and grounded, and put have really rich characters who really want something and have a lot of heart. So the film has heart, but
of course.
See, I'm in the middle of writing it now.
Awesome, man. You're busy. That's great, brother.
For a change, I had a good 3-year, chill out period.
I think everyone had a good 3-year hiatus.
Yeah, so I'd like to work.
People, man. So,
Yeah.
All right, brother. Awesome. I'll talk to you soon, man.
Yes, my man. Say hello to the wife.
Love you, pal. See you, bud.
Bye, pal.
This Santo moment is brought to you by Onesti Entertainment. In 1973, Ron Santo was honored with the Lou Gehrig Award, which is presented annually to the Major League Baseball player who most exemplifies the character of Lou Gehrig, both on and off the playing field. That Santoid was brought to you by Onesti Entertainment.
Crackerjack.
This call is being recorded.
Hello?
Andy Masur.
This is?
Jeff Santo. How you doing, pal? You're my crackerjack this week. Crackerjack call, man.
Hey, Jeff. Great to hear from you. How you doing?
I'm doing all right, man. When's the last time we talked? I think it was just after the Cubs won the World Series, and you called me live from WGN Radio.
That's true. I think it was that fateful evening right after the craziness of that 10-inning game that I had to share it with somebody because it was so special. What a great day.
It was cool, man, that you thought about my dad then, right then at that time. Pretty emotional, I remember, right? Because trying to digest the moment that my dad never got to celebrate, right?
Yeah.
Witnessing something that he was shooting for, most of his adult life.
That's very true. We thought we got close a couple times when you were kind of hanging out with us in 03 and that was close, and 07 and 08 and then 15 and then of course it all finally happened in 16, and it was one of those nights. The first few people that I thought of. I mean, I thought of my father, who I actually got to call, thankfully, and just make sure that what I saw on my TV was actually happening on his. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't dreaming. And then, immediately I thought about Ernie Banks, and I thought about your dad, because, those two guys to me just epitomize what it was to, in that day and age, to respect the fact that they were Chicago Cubs, and, especially your dad, who I got to know really well and who I miss every day and think about every day. And it's just, you just wish those moments you could share with somebody, and and I definitely wanted to get a hold of you because of that direct connection. And I know you've been through the ringer with it a lot too.
Yeah, that was. I remember we were moving the next day to California, so my house was it was empty. We sat on a couple of chairs to watch that game, and just in case that if they didn't get there, we wanted to just scoot away, right?
Yeah.
So to win it and actually, be in this empty living room, and then you called. I mean, wow! I was going into the outside in my porch into the dark corner, to talk with you. And but it was something that just I even think about right now, how powerful that was, because you're right. My dad and Ernie, weren't here, and those guys never got to a World Series, and always, hoped they could.
Yeah, and they never, unfortunately for them as players, never really got to sniff it and, played their hearts out and played for the fans, played for themselves, played for the organization. And it's just a shame that they didn't get to celebrate it. But I know that they were up there together, and they were having a good time because it finally happened.
You're right about that. And it was great to see all the 14s and 10s, around Wrigley Field during the World Series. So that was so cool. But you're right. They were there, man, in spirit and big time. And who knows, that 10th inning, who knows what my dad did. Number 10. Yeah.
Turn on the sprinklers. Turn on the sprinklers.
Right. That was something. And I got to say, man, now, you spent so much time with my dad in the booth, in the radio booth, with Pat and my dad, and you and Boltsy up top. What year did you get there to start with him?
Yeah, I started in 1999, believe it or not. I was there from 99 through the 06 season, and then I left for San Diego. Right. And some of the best times I think I've ever had around a ballpark were in that booth. And, sometimes we were laughing with your dad. Sometimes we were laughing because of your dad. He always kept it light, and he was so into it. I'll never forget, because Bolty and I would have to go out with him after the game to rehash it, basically pitch by pitch. Again, we just sat there and watched for 3.5 hours. we kind of have to relive it, but that's how into it your dad was. And I tell people to this day too. I mean, I've met a lot of people in my time, but I have not met many people that were as strong as your dad. And I'm not just talking physically; I'm talking mentally strong as your dad. And the combination of that strength and generosity. We actually one time, because Bolty and I, he would not let us pay for anything. And, he's like, oh, you guys take such good care of me. And we wanted one night we wanted to repay him. So the only way we could do it, and I still feel bad about this to this day because it caused him a little panic, but we took his wallet out of his bag and we hid it because we didn't want him to have his wallet. We wanted to be able to go out and take him out to dinner and worry about the wallet later. And we put the wallet back in his hotel room so he could actually see it. Didn't have to panic about it. But that's the thing. I mean, he tried to show us his appreciation in those ways. And I appreciated him so much, even more than that, just because he taught me a lot about the game of baseball. He taught me a lot about what it was to be yourself in the booth, because that's your dad was your dad. If you talk to Ron Santo off the air, and you heard Ron Santo on the air, you'd be like, boom, same guy, because that's who he was.
Yeah, no doubt, man. And, you did also after, when I traveled for this old Cub, but when he lost his legs, his second leg, he had both prosthetics. You really also, when I left, you got a room next to him and you took care of him in a lot of situations. And man, thank you so much for that. But he knew what you and Bolty did for him, man. That's why you guys didn't have to go into your pockets, because that's who my dad was. But you guys were great with him. Like I said, I told Bolty, I talked to him last week, said you're like sons to him, and you watched out for him. And it's you talk about my dad, man. He never got old. Like sometimes you think they age. He always had that young energy, even after his legs. Don't you think?
Oh, I definitely think, because I still saw that same feistiness in him that I did when I started in '99, and before he got sick, and that same spirit that never left him. That he never really, and he had that old ball player's mentality, because as bad as he was feeling a lot of times, and I know he was feeling pretty bad a lot of times that we were with him, but he never wanted to leave the lineup, because he always thought he was going to hurt the ball club by not being in the lineup. And that lineup needed him. And as bad as it was sometimes to watch him suffer through some pain and some suffering and just not being at his best, he somehow was still able to kind of summon enough energy and enough strength, because I think that team and all those teams and a lot of those players who really respected the hell out of your dad, the Kerry Woods of the world and the Gracies and the Mark Pryors and the Derek Lees and everybody, from A to Z, they loved your dad. They loved being around him. And I think that kind of kept him young too, because these guys would talk to him, and he was able to talk to them pretty much on their level as a former player. And I think that kept him going. I mean, I know when he missed the playoffs in 2003, it was devastating. And it was devastating for us, because I hated to go on and celebrate a series win over the Atlanta Braves without your dad. I mean, we were sitting in the clubhouse, and everybody's like, "Oh, was Ronnie listening? Was Ronnie listening?" And we're like, "Yeah, we know Ronnie was listening." And of course, the first words out of Pat Hughes' mouth were, "Ron Santo, this is for you." It didn't seem like it was right, but I knew that he was listening, and that these guys were thinking about him. They hung his jersey in the dugout. I mean, that's just kind of that's the effect that years after he played, he was still known as a Cub. And he was still respected as a Cub, and these guys loved him. And putting that jersey in the dugout during the playoffs was the ultimate sign of respect and love. And I know he felt that.
Yeah, we were out in Arizona. That's when he was getting the bladder cancer, and then it actually got delayed. So they were telling him that he was going to throw out the first pitch if he was going to go back to Chicago for the first pitch of the World Series, right? So his life, right? Just like I was telling the story when he had
he had the Miller Lite commercial in 1984, right? They get in the World Series, they're going to play his commercial, right? His national commercial. It always seems to just kind of happen that way for him. But you're right, those guys, he kept young because he had that young spirit. And even that you were talking about, too, discussing the game after with you and Bolsey, he would always do that. He did it as a player, and I think, those kind of players back then always kind of went over the game after it was over. You know what I mean? They didn't. Even the '84 guys, Jody and Bobby D and those guys, might be a little different now, but they got to sit back there in that clubhouse and wait for the traffic to go, right? And talk about the game. Why not, right? I mean, that's how it went.
It just shows how much I think that those guys really cared about what they did. Not to say the guys today don't care about what they did. It's just different times. There's so many other things that are going on after a game now than there were beforehand. And, the other thing, too, is, your dad was around a certain group of players for a long time. I mean, that team stayed together for many, many, many years. And those guys they weren't just teammates. They were friends. I mean, those guys, they loved each other. And, they had roommates on the road. I mean, your dad and Beck were together all the time. And, I think that part of it too, the camaraderie that they shared, not only on the field, but off the field, really led to a lot of that. And you're right. I mean, they just love to talk baseball. They didn't, obviously they wanted to win more than they wanted to lose, but at the same time, when they lost, they tried to learn from it, and they tried to say, hey, what should I have done in that situation? Or, God, I wish you would have done this, or man, I wish you would have, and they keep those thoughts fresh in their mind so that if they have that situation come up again, they kind of knew where everybody stood on it, and they would react differently.
Yeah, I almost look at them like artists, like musicians, actors, because you never stop discussing your craft. You know what I mean? Right. It's just beautiful to see. It's like after the game, well, God, they might be upset. Well, we screwed up over here. We didn't do this or that. You're right. Those guys were special that way. And you look at Billy and my dad and Ernie, look how many years they spent together. I mean, Ernie, even after playing, Ernie was there as a coach. So you're talking 14 seasons together. That's amazing, just to be with the same guys every year and knowing that's a family right there, and I think that's why that team was so special. Let's talk about too, man. I want to get into like when you did take care of my dad. You got to share some of the funny stories, especially the FedEx box story. You got to tell that one. After me and Bolsey talked about his hair on fire in the booth, which you were there.
Oh God. I can still smell that hair, by the way. So bad.
What was your reaction to that? I remember that was like, what the hell, man?
What is going on? It smelled like a tire fire going on up there, and it was just all of a sudden your dad's hair, his head was smoking. But you know how vain your dad was. I mean, he went to the bathroom and tried to fix it, and it looked like someone hit a 7-iron and took a divot out of the fairway where the burn wire was. But the FedEx box story. There's only 2 times I ever saw your dad without his hairpiece. Completely without one of the hair pieces. And they were both times we were in St. Louis. One time he called me and asked me if I brought a baseball hat with me because something must have happened to one of them. And I brought over a couple of hats. He didn't like any of them. So he's like, I'll figure it out. And I'm like, okay, whatever. So then I get the famous call to come on down to his room. And he doesn't tell me why he wants me to come to his room. I'm like, all right, I'll come down there. And again, he answers the door without the tube on. I'm like, oh my God, something's up. He's like, I can't find my hairpiece. I don't know where it is. I've been tearing this room apart. I'm like, all right, let me try to help you here. Yeah, I'm thinking, all right, maybe
this is when he didn't have legs too, so he's got the prosthetic legs on, right?
Yeah, so he couldn't get down on the ground and look under the bed or look under the
right.
So I came in there and I'm looking in the bathroom. I'm thinking, okay, well maybe he put it up somewhere, and I'm looking under the bed. I'm taking the sheets, I'm taking the covers off because who knows, I had to put myself in your dad's mind, which is really scary. But I kind of got to that kind of thinking with him on the same wavelength. And then I think one of the grandchildren called him. I think it was Sam that called him, and Linda might have been on the phone too, calling him in St. Louis. And he's talking, and he's like, I can't find my hairpiece. So I wandered over to the desk, and I felt kind of weird being in there while he's talking on the phone. And I'm just rifling through some papers on his desk, and then I see this box because your dad was going to sign 500 photos for a giveaway on the next homestand, and John McDonough had sent him this box. So I lifted up the box, and what appeared to be like a dead raccoon was stuck to the bottom of the box. The tape from the toupee stuck to the box. And I picked it up and I showed it to him. And he is on the phone and he just started laughing hysterically. So, you know, what would you think I would do? You think I would just take the hairpiece and give it to him? No, I brought him the box. I didn't want to touch it. I didn't want to. It looked like it was a live animal. It looked like a live animal. So I brought it over to him, and he just started laughing, and he could not stop laughing. And he's like, I tore this place up and down, and he goes, and he just kept looking at me like I'm holding this box in front of him. I'm like, would you please take this? I need to go. I got to get out of here. I go. I need some therapy now, please.
You wonder, like, if that, like, how did it fall on the box? Off his head? What did the tape on the box? I mean, the FedEx box.
Yeah, he probably took it off, or it was about to put it on.
Right.
That's what I'm surmising. And he put it with the tape side up, and then he took the box because he was signing them, and he got tired of signing, so he put the cards back into the box, put the box back on top of the toupee, and walked away. And and then next thing you know, here I am. Yeah,
I think that's it, man. I think that's what happened. It had to be.
Yeah. I never asked him, but I just had to assume. Yeah.
Classic, man. You guys saw so many things, but you know, you helped him out so much, and you did get a room next to him at times, and you know, something else. Now, I want to ask, your career, how did you start, man? How did you get into broadcasting? How did you get to the Cubs?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I had a knack for broadcasting at a very early age. My parents tell me stories about me coming toward them with Lincoln Logs as a 2-year-old, interviewing my dad about how the Cubs were going to do that year. Because he would sit me down and we would watch games on Channel 9, and I loved Jack Brickhouse. I thought that Jack Brickhouse was the end-all, be-all of announcers, and the way he was able to entertain, the way he was able to interview. And I'm thinking, okay, well, I'm gonna follow this guy's. I want to follow what this guy's doing. So I went to high school at Maine East in Park Ridge, and I was fortunate enough to hook on to we had a high school radio station, and I hooked on there, and I ended up becoming a sports director there.
You were Maine East High School, huh? Wow. And class of what? Class of 85?
85, yeah.
Wow.
So
okay, you're a little later than me.
Yeah, we did a bunch of games, and I went on to Bradley University, which is where Jack and also Vince Lloyd, they both went to Bradley, and I studied communications there, and it was kind of a roundabout way because to get on the air, I ended up being a top 40 DJ for about 5 or 6 years at one of the stations down in Peoria, and I finally said, "Yep, enough's enough. I need to do sports." I came home. And I got a chance to do some sports on a couple of stations here. And I found out that somebody was leaving WGN. And I sent the tape, and about a 5 month process. And I got hired there in January of 1999. And I met your dad for the first time in March of 1999 at spring training.
What was that?
And I'll never forget. Oh, it was the best. I mean, I was a little intimidated, I got to tell you. I was a little intimidated because obviously I caught your dad toward the end of his career, as an interested Cubs fan. But of course I knew who he was, and I knew everything pretty much about him because I was a baseball fan. But he really eased me into it right away. Because I was going to be doing pregame interviews, and I didn't know any of the players at that point. And he took me by the arm, put his arm around me, and said, "Whatever you need, you just let them know that you're doing this with me, that you're part of our broadcast. And if you have any problems with any of these guys, you let me know. I will take care of it." And I'm like, okay, well, that's good. So I knew I had the guardian angel on my shoulder, and never really had any issues. People would see me, hanging out with your dad and with Pat, and I think that gave me some instant credibility, knowing that if I was good enough to be hanging out with these guys, I was good enough to be in the clubhouse with them. And I never had any issues with that at all. And one of the hardest things I ever had to do was call your dad to tell him that I was leaving, because I was heartbroken. But I knew that I had to go to be able to come back, and if I ever wanted to take over for Pat, I needed to go and get some experience. I needed to, reach out and, graduate, so to speak, from the pregame show. And, your dad was as great as I expected him to be, but it was always get a little nervous because you don't know. It's like you're telling your dad that you're leaving home. I mean, it's one of those kind of things that it was tough. But luckily I was in the National League, and we got to see him twice a year. And I will never forget the last time I saw your dad. It was in August of 2010. Mm-hmm. The Cubs and the Padres had just wrapped up a series. And I was staying over in Chicago. The team was going home for an off day, and I decided I was going to spend the off day at home with my parents. So I waited until the very end, because your dad waited until the fans kind of left, and then he would get his little escort down the stairs into the elevator. And I walked into their booth and was kind of hanging out with them. We were just talking like nothing had ever happened. No time had ever passed. And he looked at me and he said, "All right, I got to get going." He goes, I said, "Hey," I said, "it's always great to see." And he would always ask about my parents. He always asked me about my folks to see how they were doing. Always. And I said, "All right, Ronnie," I said, have a great winter. I'll give you a call, and if I come to Chicago, and we'll see if we can get together." And he's like, "Hey, listen," and he gave me a big old bear hug like your dad would do. Mm-hmm. And I said, "Hey, I'm proud of what you did. I'm proud of you. You're doing a great job." And then I watched him, walk down the stairs and walk down the left field concourse. And unfortunately, that was the last time I got to chat with him. And it's ingrained in my brain. I'll tell you that right now. I never forget that.
Wow, man! Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's wow.
Yeah,
through a heavy one. Yeah, that's kind of how it went for me in his hospital room. It's weird how but you the relationship that you had going to San Diego, he was so happy for you because you got a play-by-play job there. So talk a little bit about that. How what happened over there, and talk about a little what you did for the Cubs. Okay, for people that don't know.
Yeah, so I mean, with WGN and the Cubs, I was basically the main pre and post game host. And when your dad, 2002 was the first year that I actually traveled, because 2001 in the off season was when your dad lost his first leg, and they wanted me to kind of be around and keep an eye on him, and just to make sure that if God forbid anything happened where he got sick and he couldn't do a game, that I could jump in and do a game. And I was blown away by that, and just being able to go on the road with the Major League Baseball team was something that I had always wanted to do, and here I am doing it with some of my favorite people in the world that I've worked with for a few years already. And then in 2003, I got the chance to kind of fill in for Pat a little bit, and my first real taste of baseball play-by-play, which was something again that I've always wanted to do ever since I was a kid. And it kind of went from there, where I was just basically, I was their lead researcher whenever they had a question. I would do scoreboard updates for Pat during the game. Mm-hmm. I would, get information, and Bolty and I would occasionally be, to the point where we bring in drinks and things like that, and keeping an eye on your dad and his diabetes, and making sure that on the hot days he was well hydrated, and we always had a candy bar or a Coke ready to go just in case. Mm-hmm. He needed it, and he was really good about turning around, and we knew the look. Let's put it that way. Bolty and I knew the look, and as soon as that look happened, we sprang into action no matter what time of the game it was. So, so I got to do that, and then I kind of parlayed a lot of that fill-in work with an opportunity in San Diego to do play-by-play, working with a very established booth. I went to San Diego with Ted Leitner, who had been there for almost 30 years, and Jerry Coleman, who had been there almost 30 years. And it was really interesting. I didn't even think about this until just a second, but they asked me in the interview in San Diego if I understood the role of Jerry Coleman, because Jerry Coleman in San Diego was like your dad in Chicago. He was this iconic player, broadcaster. He managed the team for 1 year, but he was always there. And as bad as he was sometimes on the radio, people loved him and they revered him, and the Colonel was everything. And I said, I think I have an idea. I said, I spent the last 9 years working with Chicago's version of Jerry Coleman. And I said, Ron Santo was revered by Cubs fans and baseball fans alike. And I said, look, I did anything I could for him to make sure that he was looked at in a positive light. If he was struggling with something on the air, I would flip him a note. I would never correct him on the radio. I got to work with him several times doing play-by-play, and we had a blast. I said I would always try to make him, the focal point of the show. And I got to believe that kind of helped me get the job, because I, was, and it wasn't like I was completely and totally in deference to your dad or to Jerry. I was my own guy, but I knew how important those two gentlemen were to their respective franchises and to their fan bases. And I was going to hype them up as much as I could, because I look at it this way: if I'm making them look bad, I look bad, and people are not going to like me for any reason whatsoever. And I just figured, you know what, I'm going to do the same thing. And I just I did. And Jerry, passed away right after my last season there, actually in 2013. Wow. Had a fall and hit his head, and
right.
Military man. I went to a military funeral for the first time in my life, and just the people that I have gotten to meet, and the Hall of Famers. Jerry's a Hall of Famer in broadcasting. Your dad's a Hall of Famer. Just all these guys, and now Pat, that I've gotten the chance to rub elbows with. I pinch myself thinking, my God, these guys tolerated me. I mean, like I was a little.
Oh, come on, man! I saw your work. I saw your work.
You know what I mean. You know what I mean.
But I do know what you mean. But I saw your work, and you worked your butt off, and
we did.
Good at what you did. You were kind of like that utility man that came in and played. If someone said, "Boom," you're right there. That's a big job, man. You know what I mean?
It was a huge job. It was a huge job.
Yeah, it was a huge job, and you did it for Pat. Then you started filling in an inning for Pat, but you did it all up there, man. And you and Boltsy, he handled the engineering stuff, but you handled everything that was going in, the updates of scores. Yeah, you worked your butt off, man. You were prepared. Now I got to ask you this: when you first started there, weren't you like handling my dad's recordings with the manager at that time?
Yeah, because there were too many.
Too many mistakes.
He wouldn't press record.
Play, record. Yeah.
He had a great interview. I'll never forget. He had a great interview with Don Baylor, who was there in 2002. He started, and I'm just like, Ronnie, I don't hear it. I mean, did you give me the right tape? I mean, I don't hear it. And he kind of looks at me. He's like, oh crap, I forgot to hit record. So here's me going, we need this interview for the pregame show. So, where our booth was as compared to where the clubhouse was, I mean, I literally had to walk down all these ramps. We're pushing time. Don Baylor's on to other things at this point. So I had to call the media relations people, and I'm like, please, I just let me get in there and do it. So Don Baylor's looking at me like this big angry man. It's like, and he was not a big angry man, by the way. He was all bark and zero fight. But exactly. And this was one of the first few times I had to deal with him. And we sat down, and he's like, all right, okay, let's go ahead. We don't have a lot of time. All right, let's get right to it. We did it. And I came back up there, and he's like, did he do it? I'm like, yeah, he did it. And I said, you better go down there and thank him, just because, this is our pregame show, and we had a big hole to fill. And so I finally decided, you know what? I'm just going to be down there every time. Because I figured it this way. I learned more before the show went on, because he would talk, and he'd be able to talk freely with both, Riggleman and with Baylor and with Dusty Baker later on, right, where I'd learn a little bit more, and because those guys those guys trusted me with that information that I wasn't going to put it on the air if it didn't need to be on the air. And I learned a lot about everything, but I always felt a lot more comfortable knowing that I was there to push play and record, so that we would have the interview and nothing was to chance. So it was fun. I mean, there were some agonizing days where your dad was a little late to the ballpark. That never happened, did it? No. I'd be sweating it out a little bit, and I'd get the text or the call. Yeah, you better go ahead and do it. I'm like, okay, already done. I already do it.
That's the kind of guy. But you were. I could see. Yeah, you were like waiting for something to happen. It's like you got your glove ready to get out there at second. Someone's about to get hurt here, but. I always saw that kind of in the way that you moved, but that you did it, man, and that's very cool. To fill in like that.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and you had fun doing it. Well, most times, but it's a serious job, and you got to be on your toes. It's to get stuff like that. Like you said, everyone's time is valuable, and if you got to do a double interview, boy, no one wants to do that.
Nobody wants to do that.
No. Now, let me ask you this: you went to San Diego, then you came back to Chicago. What brought you back? And tell me where you are now.
Yeah, so I came back. Things didn't end up working out all that well in San Diego, because of we had three different ownership groups owned the ball club while I was there.
Oh.
I survived the first two, and my contract was coming up as the third one was kind of settling in. Mm-hmm. And they had somebody in mind that they wanted to use, and that's kind of the break for the game, unfortunately. Right. I was a little bitter about it back then, and I kind of learned to kind of deal with it. Luckily for me, I left WGN on good terms. Dave Ennett, the sports director, who hired me the first time, I called him and said, "Hey, I'm coming back. Do you have anything for me?" And he's like, "Oh, I only have part-time." I said, "I'll take it." So he hired me again. And then in 2018, we picked up the White Sox broadcast on the station that they were with was going bankrupt. So they had to shed the contract, and we took the contract in spring training of 2018. And I did the pregame show for that, and then I ended up doing some play-by-play with Darren Jackson, with Ed Farmer. Right. And then Ed Farmer got sick. And in 2019, I ended up finishing the season from about mid-August to the very end of the year because Ed couldn't go. And then Ed passed away in April of 2020. And of course, the pandemic delayed the season, but I was their top play-by-play guy in 2020, doing all the games from the booth at Guarantee Rate Field on the south side. We were doing some of the the road games off TV and things of that nature, and it was a very interesting time to be alive and to be around the sport. But our contract with the team ended in 2020 after the season, and they decided to leave our station, and they decided that they were going to go with a different play-by-play guy. So I didn't get that opportunity, which kind of sucks because I'm still thinking that I've got some stuff left in the tank to. Oh yeah, you got a lot. You got a lot in the tank. Yeah. So I mean, I've been working at GN. I've been doing some filling on some Northwestern basketball. I do basketball play-by-play. Filled in a couple of times on the pre and post game shows for the Blackhawks that we have. I've done some college basketball play-by-play, for one of the conferences in town. So yeah, I'm still here in Chicago. I recently got married a couple of years ago. I know you did. The longtime bachelor finally found somebody. Hey, I was right there with you, man. I get it. You were. I know. Yeah, I know. So yeah, so that's kind of changed. You'll probably say the same thing. Yeah, it's changed my perspective a lot on things because I don't miss being away as much, as I thought I might because I've got somebody to come home to. We have a dog now, and right. That's beautiful. It's such a different perspective. I've now been with Christie since 2008, and it's wonderful. It changed your life so much for the better, but you do have a lot in the tank for baseball, man. I do hope you land somewhere because you're good. All right, and thank you. I appreciate that. You work hard and you deserve it. So I can't thank you enough for all the great things you did for our dad. So just great to have you on, Andy, and I hope I run into you soon. All right, pal? It would be great. I appreciate the call, and it's been great talking about your dad and reminiscing. I always love to do that. I know, man. All right. Miss you, pal, and I hope to see you in Chicago sometime soon. Yeah, Jeff. All right. See you, Andy. Take care. Thanks again. Take care, buddy. Yeah.
Oh, that was a great show.
Yeah, it sure was.
And we're so lucky to be able to do this. And really, the only reason we're able to do this is because of you guys listening. And if you could just tell one person today, tomorrow, the next day about our pod. Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
If you just tell one person, then they tell one person, and next thing you know, more people know about our show, and we're able to do it because we're only able to do it because you listen, and also because of our sponsors.
Yeah, we got some great sponsors that are connected to our show, like Bernie's and you know all of them, Geno's and Wrigleyville Sports. All part of a family here.
If you go and shop at Wrigleyville Sports and use that coupon code, don't forget to use that coupon code.
It helps support our show and the
really
people who support us. Yeah. So thank you. And there's some great stuff to buy and get that Rhino Strong shirt for sure. And also, like I said, there's my dad's jerseys are there, Ernie's, Billy's, so much to pick from. But
absolutely.
And go to Geno's too when you're here in LA. I'd love to run into you.
Yeah, and hey, if you got a event that you need to have an auctioneer, you need to have some help raising money, go to Hail Hail Auctions and tell them Santo sent you, because if you don't tell them Santo sent you, it doesn't help us.
Yeah.
All right.
And thanks to our special thanks to our cool crackerjacks.
Yes.
You want to become a cool crackerjack? Please sign up, become part of the team. Thank you to Scott Nelson, Jim McCauley, Debbie Foley, Sherry Matarisi, Terry O'Brien, Gary Tallman, Anne-Marie Pascule, Jim Muleschlegel, Liz Rutherford, and Mac McPhillamy.
This show is made possible because of all of them and all of our subscribers. If you want to support the show and be a cool crackerjack yourself, subscribe on our Patreon page, click the link below this episode, or go to the Patreon tab on our website, www.peanutspopcornandcrackerjacks.com.
And remember to click the follow button for the next episode and leave a review. I say this every time. Come on, leave a review. Not hard, couple of lines. Say what you think about the show. Anything.
And actually, we have a new review on YouTube. I just saw.
Really?
I haven't checked that in a while.
Outstanding.
So that's fantastic. Thank you so much. We hear you. Thank you for listening. And don't hesitate to write. Give us suggestions. Tell us how you're liking the show. Email jeff.ppcpodcast@gmail.com.
For my closing quote, a journey is a person in itself. No two are alike. And all plans, safeguards, policing, and coercion are fruitless. We find that after years of struggle that we do not take a trip takes us. John Steinbeck.
Toodaloo.
SantoFilms.com, the place to buy This Old Cub DVDs, posters, and This Old Cub t-shirts. Get yourself one now at SantoFilms.com.